If Jeep is known for cars the size of Hulk, then this new Avenger is the baby of the family. It's the company's first battery electric car. It's a city SUV with about 400 kilometers of claimed driving range, priced about $50,000 before on-road costs. Is this Jeep's EV endgame? This video is going to take you through everything cool on the outside of this car, show how much space there is on the inside, and of course hit the road to find out just what it's like to drive. Let's get started. The Jeep Avenger range starts from $49,990 before on-road costs and spans to $60,990 before on-road costs for the Summit variant on test here. Design details across the range include black plastic around the car to help protect it off-road, rear door handles mounted up high, and a choice of 17-inch or 18-inch alloy wheels depending on variant. Standard equipment in the base model includes LED headlights, a 10.25-inch infotainment screen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, 7-inch instrument display, fabric seats, push-button start, a rear-view camera, and rear parking sensors. The mid-grade Limited adds a 10.25-inch instrument display, blind spot monitoring, keyless entry, sat-nav and other extras, while the Summit adds leather-accented trim, power-adjustable driver's seat, heated front seats, LED tail lights, and more. Rivals for the Jeep Avenger include the Tesla Model 3, Hyundai Kona Electric, and Volvo EX30. We have plenty of new and used examples of these cars for sale from trusted dealers around Australia on Drive Marketplace. Check that out right now. Inside the Avenger, you can see there's not a lot here shared with other models in the Jeep range, both for good and for bad. You can see plenty of space, even though I'm 6'1" or 186 centimeters tall. Good headroom, as well as pretty good leg room to the dash as well. This steering wheel has tilt and reach adjustment, as you'd expect of a car like this. Seats are quite comfortable, 6-way power adjustment on the driver's side, as well as heated front seats in this top of the range Summit grade, as well as a nice leather look filling material with some little Jeep embossing on them as well. Storage is pretty good in here, surprisingly good for such a small car. You can see got a little shelf on the dash for storing things, so it's not rubberized, so stuff may slide around. Really, really big cubby hole between the front seats, which is where the gear selector is as well. Big enough for backpacks, handbags, things like that. Surprisingly big items for a car this small. 2 USB ports as well as a 12-volt socket in there too, plus a wireless phone charger in this grade. You can see center console, it's deep enough, though it is a little bit small in terms of its footprint. And there are some cup holders in this deep center bin here, though it is worth noting, best for bottles only, because coffee cups are a bit too deep. So it's hard to remove a coffee cup with a lid without trying to, that lid falling off. It's a little bit finicky and could be better in that regard. Door bins are a decent size. Glove box you've got as well under here. A little bit small, but that's okay. There is enough storage elsewhere in the cabin. And look, there are some scratchy materials around, but at least there are harder controls for volume, climate controls, all things that matter while you're driving. And overall, it's a user-friendly cabin. If a place where it could be improved, yes, some of those materials and some things like that. This touchscreen, you'll notice, 10.25 inches is pretty easy to use, but the software is from a Peugeot, which you will notice if you've seen photos of one of those cars. Same goes for the 10.25-inch instrument display ahead of me here on this top of the range Summit. Both are pretty easy to use. They're well featured, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in particular on this screen. But yeah, you'll notice some of the Peugeot switchgear there, as well as on the steering wheel, the climate buttons, parking brake, things like that. Maybe not such a big deal, but it does show where the roots of this Jeep Avenger lie is in the French car company. Anyway, let's head to the back. The Avenger is obviously a very small car, so it isn't going to be the most accommodating for passengers in the back simply by nature. As you can see, knee room isn't fantastic behind this driver's seat setup for me. I sit quite close to the steering wheel for someone of my height, so if you're taller or sit a bit further back, yeah, adults are not going to have a very nice time back here. Toe room, I have some toe room under the front seat, but it is a little bit compromised with this driver's seat set quite low. And headroom is actually surprisingly good for a car of this size. It's got this nice cutter in the roof that does make it a little bit easier, though. If you lean forward a bit too much, you might whack your head on this crossbar, but I guess how often are you going to be leaning forward all that much in the back of a car like this? Now, in terms of amenities, it is pretty light on. You have some map pockets on the back of the front seats, and you do have a USB-C socket to charge devices. There's no air vents, there's no door pockets of any form, no cup holders back here, no fold-down center armrests. You obviously do have some ice fix points of putting child seats in, and yeah, overall, it's a pretty tight experience, particularly in this middle seat, because you have a really, really big hump in the floor that is not going to make that very comfortable. But I guess a buyer for a car like this is going to be using it in the city, maybe 2 people up front at max, so isn't going to mind the rear seats particularly cramped. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. Right, let's check out the boot. Jeep claims 355 litres of boot space in the back of this Avenger, which is actually pretty good for a car that's this small on the outside. Now, this boot floor has 2 different positions. You can put it up high and have a bit of space underneath for storing your charging cables, or put it down low to get a bit more room in the total boot. Now, you can see those rear seats fold 60-40 for a bit more space, though as with most electric cars, there's no spare wheel under the floor, just a tyre repair kit. Now, what else did I mention? Well, you've got a light on the left side of the boot, some bag hooks around the place as well, and this tailgate is power operated on this top of the range Summit model. But overall, It's a surprisingly big boot for a car this small, but then again, the big boot and the roomy front seats mean there is a compromise, and that is in rear seat accommodation. But overall, surprisingly well packaged the interior of this Avenger. Let's hit the road to find out what it's like to drive. Powering the Jeep Avenger is a 115 kilowatt, 260 Nm electric motor on the front axle, connected to a 54 kWh lithium-ion battery pack. Good for 396 kilometers of claimed driving range in the Longitude and the Limited, or 390 kilometers in the Summit due to its bigger 18-inch wheels. Alright, behind the wheel of the new Jeep Avenger. Now this car isn't trying to be the fastest electric car on the road, but there's enough power for what it is. 115 kilowatts in sport mode, or when you put your foot down in the other two modes, and it has plenty of punch for zipping into gaps in traffic or even making some overtakes at higher speeds on a country road. It's obviously not a rocket ship, but again, it's not trying to be. It's got enough power for what it is. I really like this car. Obviously, it is the smallest in Jeep's current range, and it definitely does feel it on the road. It's small in the lane, you can position it quite easily. And this steering, yeah, super quick, super darty, and it gives it a really zippy feel, which I really, really appreciate. Now, I will say, the weighting I'm not such a huge fan of. In sport, it has enough weight, it's reassuring enough at higher speeds. And in normal modes, it's pretty light at low speeds, but it's almost too light. There's almost little to no resistance in the steering at low speeds. And at higher speeds, yeah, it's just not very reassuring at all. So we found ourselves leaving the car in sport mode simply to have a bit heavier steering, give it a bit more heft and a bit more of a sense of solidity in the car on the road. Now, in terms of the ride, it's on the firmer side of the spectrum. You can feel more of little bumps than you might otherwise like, in a little city-focused car. But it's got a really good balance between compliance and how well it absorbs bumps, as well as control. It doesn't feel, too unruly at higher speeds. There's a bit of a jitteriness at times over, bumps on the freeway. This is quite a short car. That's a trait of cars with short wheelbases. But overall, yeah, it's a really nice balance between good handling and good ride comfort around town. Other things to mention, visibility is pretty good too. Good vision out the front, good vision out the back, which is good too, as well as some decently sized side mirrors. Now, noise is also pretty well isolated. Not too much wind noise. There is a bit of tyre roar on coarse chip surfaces, but that's to be expected sometimes. I can't always put, a whole lot of insulation in the car that is trying to aim at the lower end of the market. Other than that, in terms of the brakes, the brake pedal feel is quite well judged in terms of the handoff between the regen brakes from the electric motor, as well as the actual disc brakes behind the wheels. I will say there's no one pedal drive mode in this car, like some electric cars like Tesla or MG, for example. So you can't bring the car to a full stop just by lifting off a throttle pedal, but still, for what it is, it has a choice of normal and a stronger regen mode, and we found that stronger mode to be my preference. Of course, your mileage will vary in that regard. Overall, we really like how the Avenger drives. It's quite fun on a nice road, it's comfortable enough around town, there's enough power for what this car is trying to do, and yeah, it's a great balance between the fun side of driving as well as the more comfortable, mundane, day-to-day side of the driving experience. So there you have it, the new Jeep Avenger. It might be small on the outside, but there's a surprising amount of space on the inside. It's great to drive, and there's plenty of technology in this top-of-the-range Summit version. However, I think the challenge for most buyers will be the price. 50 grand starting is quite a bit of money for what is a very small car, and not far off where a base Tesla Model 3 or even a Tesla Model Y opens its range. And the driving range, about 400 Ks, may not be enough for many buyers, particularly if you cover long distances on a regular basis. But this car is right for you, and it is right for many thousands of Aussies across the country, and I could see Jeep assembling a team of these on Aussie roads in the coming years. If you enjoyed this video, why not give us a like, and of course, to stay up to date with our latest content, subscribe to see all our new car reviews as soon as they land. And of course, to read the full written review, the link in the description below, head to Drive.com.au. To watch two of this Jeep's similarly priced rivals go head to head with fewer Avengers puns in this video, click on your screen now to watch the Tesla Model 3 go up against the Volvo EX30.